Control feels powerful until it kills your growth. You think doing everything yourself makes you strong. But what if it's the very thing keeping you small? You can't scale isolation. You can't grow inside your own echo chamber. The truth is, the moment you stop trusting others, you start limiting yourself. This audiobook is not about working harder. It's about letting go of control, of ego, and of the illusion that you can do it all alone. Because self-reliance feels safe, but it's silently costing you your future. Chapter 1. Control is just fear in disguise. You call it control. You call it discipline. You call it standards, but if we're honest, it's fear. Fear of letting go. Fear of being disappointed. Fear of watching someone else fail in your name. That's what control really is. It's fear, wearing a mask of responsibility. It's your comfort zone pretending to be leadership. You tell yourself, if I do it myself, at least I know it'll get done right. But what you're really saying is, I don't trust anyone but me. And that belief, right there, is the ceiling on your growth. Because the truth is simple. You can't scale control. You can't multiply fear. You can't grow while gripping everything so tightly that nothing new can enter your hands. You see, control feels powerful. It gives you the illusion of safety. It feeds your ego. But growth doesn't come from safety. It comes from surrender. And that's what most people never understand. They think control is the mark of a strong leader. But real leadership is the exact opposite. Real leaders release control. They delegate. They trust. They build systems that run without them because they know the truth. Control is comfort. Growth is surrender. Say it again. Control is comfort. Growth is surrender. Every time you choose control, you choose comfort. Every time you choose surrender, you choose expansion. And make no mistake, this is a choice. You have a choice. You can choose the comfort of being the one who knows everything, or the freedom of being the one who builds something bigger than yourself. Let's get real for a moment. When you micromanage, it's not about excellence, it's about anxiety. When you refuse to delegate, it's not about standards, it's about survival. You don't trust others because you barely trust yourself, and that's the root of it all. You've built your confidence on control. You've mistaken tension for strength, but true strength doesn't tighten, it releases. Let that sink in. When you need to control everything, it's because you're afraid of losing something: approval, reputation, stability, love. But here's the irony. In your attempt to control everything, you end up losing the very things you're trying to protect. You lose peace. You lose creativity. You lose connection, and the worst part? You lose people, because nobody wants to work, live, or love under a microscope. Control chokes out trust. It suffocates innovation. It turns collaboration into compliance. You become the ceiling. Your team stops thinking. Your relationships stop breathing. Your business stops growing. All because of fear, disguised as control. Let me make it plain. The world doesn't reward perfectionists. It rewards multipliers. The person who does it all alone will always lose to the person who builds a system. You might be more skilled. You might be more disciplined. But if you're alone, your reach is capped. Because control doesn't scale. Trust does. Delegation does. Systems do. That's the key. The goal isn't to do everything yourself. The goal is to make sure everything gets done, with or without you. That's leadership. It's not about being in every detail. It's about creating clarity so strong that others can move without hesitation. It's about replacing control with communication. Think about it this way. The pilot doesn't control every bolt in the plane. The CEO doesn't write every email. The architect doesn't lay every brick, but their vision shapes everything. Their trust in the process holds it together. Their surrender gives power to the people around them. Because real leaders know, the point isn't to prove your control. It's to multiply your impact. You can't do that if you're still clinging to fear. You can't lead if you're still living in protection mode. Control keeps you safe, but surrender sets you free. Control makes you busy, but surrender makes you effective. Control looks like power, but surrender is power, and let's be honest, letting go isn't easy. It feels like risk. It feels like loss. It feels like stepping into the unknown, but that's where growth lives. In the space where you stop pretending that you're the only one who can do it right. Because that's ego talking. That's insecurity talking. And it's keeping you small. You don't need their permission to trust someone. You just need to stop protecting your ego long enough to build a system that's bigger than you. That's how you evolve from worker to builder, from operator to leader, from control freak to visionary, because leaders don't cling, they create. They don't hold, they hand over. They don't protect, they prepare, and that's what you're learning to do right now. So let's get practical. Here's what you do. Audit your control. Write down every task, decision, and responsibility you refuse to delegate. Ask yourself why. If the answer is fear, you found your growth point. Pick one thing to release. Start small. Delegate one task this week. Let someone else fail safely. Let them learn. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Build trust through clarity. Don't delegate vaguely. Delegate with precision. Define success. Create accountability. When people know what winning looks like, they'll rise to meet it. And every time fear tries to pull you back, remind yourself. Control is comfort. Growth is surrender. Say it until it sticks. Say it until it becomes your operating system. Because that's the truth. The hard truth that separates the grinders from the growers. You can't grow and grip at the same time. You can't expand and control simultaneously. One will always strangle the other, so choose. You have a choice. Stay safe in the illusion of control, or step into the risk of trust. And finally, start scaling your potential, because control may feel powerful, but surrender is power. That's the paradox most people never learn. That's the doorway most people never walk through. And when you finally do, when you finally loosen your grip, you'll realize you never lost control. You gained freedom. You'll see that growth didn't demand more effort. It demanded more trust. And that everything you were trying to protect was waiting on the other side of surrender. Because control was never the goal. It was the disguise. And now you see through it. Control is comfort. Growth is surrender. You've mastered your fear, for now. But fear always returns in new disguises. And the next disguise is busyness. Because once you stop controlling everything, you'll try to do everything. Let's fix that next. Chapter 2. The myth of the lone wolf. You've been told to be self-made. You've been told to be independent. You've been told that real strength means doing it all alone. But that's a lie. The lone wolf story sounds noble. It sounds heroic. But in reality, it's just lonely. No one truly builds greatness in isolation. Every self-made success story is surrounded by invisible hands. The people, the systems, and the support that make the dream possible. Even the greats had help. Even the geniuses had partners. Even the legends had a team. Because here's the truth. You're not weak for needing help. You're wise for using it. Society glorifies the lone wolf. The one who grinds in silence. The one who never asks, never leans, never needs. But that image is toxic. It's built on ego, not excellence. You think doing everything yourself makes you strong. But it actually makes you smaller. You think independence equals freedom. But total isolation? That's a cage. You can't scale alone. You can't evolve alone. You can't see blind spots alone. That's the hidden cost of trying to do everything yourself. You become your own limitation. You have a choice. You can either protect your pride or expand your potential. You can't do both. Let's talk about bandwidth. Every person, and no matter how talented, has a limited capacity. You only have so many hours, so much focus, so much energy. When you insist on doing everything yourself, you burn your bandwidth on things that don't deserve it. You end up tired, not transformed. Busy, not productive. That's the real danger. You burn out chasing control instead of building momentum through collaboration. You don't need to do it all. You just need to make sure it all gets done. That's the key. Let's take a real example. Steve Jobs, the world calls him a genius, and he was. But even Steve Jobs needed Steve Wozniak. Jobs had vision. Wozniak had engineering brilliance. Together they created Apple. Without that partnership, there's no iPhone, no Mac, no empire. Even the visionary needs an implementer. Even the strategist needs an executor. Because genius means nothing without collaboration. You can have the ideas, but someone else helps build the infrastructure. Someone else challenges your thinking. Someone else refines your work. That's what the lone wolf never understands. They chase independence and end up alone, surrounded by half-finished projects, untapped ideas, and unrealized potential. You have to decide what you really want. To be independent, or to be impactful. Here's a truth most people never admit. The lone wolf isn't confident. They're scared. They're scared to be misunderstood. Scared to depend on someone who might fail. Scared to trust, to delegate, to share credit. But that fear doesn't protect you. It isolates you, and isolation doesn't make you stronger. It makes you rigid. You start thinking small because you're forced to think within your own limits. You stop learning because no one's challenging you. You stop growing because there's no friction, no feedback, no partnership. You can't sharpen a blade against itself. You need pressure. You need resistance. You need others. Because collaboration doesn't make you weaker. It makes you sharper. You're not weak for needing help. You're wise for using it. Let's talk about creativity. Creativity isn't born in solitude. It's born in exchange. The push and pull of ideas, perspectives, and energies. When you lock yourself in your own world, you stop hearing new frequencies. You lose curiosity. You lose innovation. You start recycling your own thoughts. That's what burnout really is. Creative repetition. Doing the same thing the same way until your inspiration runs dry. You don't run out of energy. You run out of perspective. And perspective comes from people. That's why the most creative minds surround themselves with challengers, not followers. They understand that greatness grows in community. You have a choice. Stay in your head or step into collaboration. Stay safe or scale your genius. Now, let's get practical. If you want to escape the lone wolf trap, here's what you do. Step 1. Identify your zone of genius. What do you do best? What energizes you? What produces the most value when you do it? Everything else, automate it, delegate it, or delete it. Step 2. Build your circle. Stop searching for clones. Find complements. If you're the visionary, find the builder. If you're the builder, find the strategist. Partnership is about balance, not duplication. Step 3. Practice trust before it feels safe. Waiting to trust until you feel ready means you'll never trust at all. Trust isn't a feeling, it's a discipline. Start small, delegate a task, share responsibility, let people rise, and when they stumble, because they will, don't take it back. Teach, adjust, continue. That's how leadership grows. That's how teams evolve. That's how you multiply instead of repeat. Let's reframe something right now. You're not the machine. You're the architect. Your job isn't to do everything. Your job is to design how everything works together. That's leadership. That's leverage. It's not about ego. It's about efficiency. It's not about control. It's about collaboration. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. That's the discipline of building something that lasts. So stop worshiping the lone wolf. Start honoring the pack, because wolves don't survive alone. They hunt together. They move in rhythm. They share the load. They protect one another. You want to build a life that lasts? Find your pack. Build your system. Trust your circle. You don't need their permission. You just need to let go of your pride long enough to accept support. Because asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Delegating isn't failure, it's leadership. Collaboration isn't compromise, it's acceleration. You don't have to do it alone to prove your strength. You have to build with others to prove your vision. You're not weak for needing help, you're wise for using it. Say it again until it becomes your new belief. You're not weak for needing help. You're wise for using it because the lone wolf dies in the woods. But the pack survives the winter. The myth of the lone wolf ends where real growth begins. At connection, at trust, at collaboration. That's the shift. That's the breakthrough. And once you make it, everything changes. Your work gets lighter. Your ideas get bigger. Your energy multiplies because you finally understand success isn't a solo sport. It's a team strategy. You have a choice. Isolation or expansion. Choose expansion. Choose connection. Choose wisdom. Because you can't do everything yourself. And you're not supposed to. You've learned that the lone wolf is a myth. Now it's time to expose the next illusion. The lie of busyness. Because after you stop doing everything alone, you'll still be tempted to do everything. Let's fix that next. Chapter 3. Busyness is the new insecurity. You're not productive. You're just busy. There's a difference. Busy looks impressive. Busy sounds noble. But busy doesn't build anything that lasts. Busyness is the mask you wear to feel important. It's the illusion of progress. The noise that hides your fear of stillness. You're not chasing productivity. You're escaping reflection. Because silence would force you to face yourself. Let's tell the truth. Busyness is the new insecurity. You fill your schedule because you don't want to face your uncertainty. You keep moving so you don't have to measure your movement. You confuse effort with effectiveness, motion with meaning, and then you wonder why you're exhausted but not evolving. We live in a culture addicted to activity. If you're not running, you're falling behind. If you're not available, you're irrelevant. You glorify the grind. You worship the hustle. You post about your no days off mentality like it's a badge of honor, but behind that grind is fear, not growth. Fear of being left behind. Fear of being overlooked. Fear of being forgotten. That's the truth no one wants to say out loud. You stay busy because it feels safer than being still. Because stillness would expose how directionless your effort really is. Busy isn't productive. It's protective. Say it again. Busy isn't productive. It's protective. You're protecting yourself from reflection. You're protecting your ego from discomfort. You're protecting your illusion of control. But protection isn't progress. Avoidance isn't advancement. And more hours don't mean more impact. Let's analyze it clearly. If your schedule is full but your results are flat, you're not growing. You're hiding. You're hiding behind tasks, behind endless meetings, behind notifications, calls, checklists, and chaos. You confuse being in motion with moving forward. That's not strategy. That's self-sabotage dressed up as ambition. You tell yourself, I just have a lot on my plate. No. You have a lot of avoidance in your calendar. You tell yourself, I'm being productive. No. You're being distracted, just at a professional level. You tell yourself, I'll rest when it's done. But here's the truth. It's never done. Because you never stop adding more. You don't want rest. You want validation. You want the world to see how busy you are because deep down, you're not sure you're enough when you're still. That's the core of it. You've tied your worth to your workload. But that's not success. That's slavery. You have a choice. You can chase validation or build value. You can stay busy or get effective. You can't do both. Think about it. When was the last time you paused long enough to think deeply about your direction? When was the last time you measured your output? Not by how hard you worked, but by how much impact you created. That's what real productivity is. Impact, not effort. The truly successful don't glorify busy. They glorify clarity. They glorify focus. They glorify systems. They don't ask, what can I do? They ask, what actually moves the needle? That's the difference between motion and momentum. Motion is exhausting. Momentum is exhilarating. One drains you, the other multiplies you. And that's the shift you need to make. From being constantly occupied to being consciously effective. Let's get practical. Here's how to break the addiction to busyness. Step 1. Audit your calendar. Take a hard look at where your time actually goes. Be ruthless. How much of your day is filled with low-impact work that makes you feel productive but does nothing to move you forward? Delete it, automate it, delegate it. Step 2. Define your top 3 priorities. Everything else is noise. Ask yourself, if I only did 3 things this week, what would actually create results? Focus on that. Obsessively. Step 3. Schedule stillness. Yes, schedule it. Stillness isn't laziness, it's strategy. It's where clarity is born. You can't design a vision in the middle of chaos. You don't need more hours. You need more focus. That's the key. Let me tell you something powerful. Successful people aren't busier than you. They're just more selective than you. They know what to ignore. They know what to stop. They know what to say no to, even when it looks good, because they understand something most people never learn. Focus is a form of self-respect. You don't respect your goals when you say yes to everything. You don't respect your energy when you waste it on distractions. You don't respect your time when you fill it just to avoid yourself. Busy people crave validation. Disciplined people crave results. It's not about working harder. It's about working higher. That's the discipline. You want transformation? Here it is. Start measuring your day by outcomes, not activity. Stop chasing full calendars. Start chasing fulfilled results. Every hour must earn its place. Every task must prove its value. Every yes must cost something. If it doesn't, you're lying to yourself, because busy feels good until you realize it's the same cycle every week. Same effort, same stress, same outcome. You can't evolve when you're on a treadmill. You're running fast, but you're going nowhere. That's the lie of busyness. It makes you feel alive while it quietly kills your progress. You have a choice. Stay busy and feel significant, or get strategic and become unstoppable. Choose. And when you choose strategy, you'll notice something powerful. Your life will get quieter. Your calendar will get lighter, and your results will get louder. Because when you remove the noise, what's left is focus. And focus is where the breakthroughs live. You'll finally understand that being available for everything means being effective at nothing. Busyness is the trap. Clarity is the escape. And it starts the moment you stop glorifying chaos and start respecting peace. So stop saying, I'm so busy. Start saying, I'm building with intention. Stop saying, I have no time. Start saying, I control what matters. Stop saying, I can't slow down. Start saying, I choose where I go. Because that's the truth. You have a choice. You always do. You don't need their permission to slow down. You just need the courage to stop running from yourself. Busy isn't productive. It's protective. Say it until it breaks your old pattern. Say it until it becomes your new rhythm. Because the goal isn't to stay in motion. The goal is to move with purpose. You've broken the illusion of busyness. You've stopped running from stillness. Now you're ready for the next level. Not just doing less, but doing smarter. Because once you stop confusing activity with progress, the next question becomes, how do you use your time to multiply results? Let's talk about that next. Chapter 4. Perfectionism is a productivity killer. You think perfection is power. You think if you get every detail right, you'll finally feel safe. You think excellence and perfection are the same thing. They're not. Perfectionism isn't about standards. It's about fear. You're not polishing your work. You're protecting your ego. You're not editing for impact. You're editing for approval. Let's call it what it is. Perfectionism is procrastination dressed as productivity. You tell yourself, I'm not ready yet. It's not quite there. Once I fix this last thing, I'll put it out. But you never put it out. You keep tweaking. You keep reworking. You keep hiding behind the illusion of progress because perfectionism gives you something that feels like control without the risk of exposure. And that's what you're addicted to. Control. But control doesn't create momentum. Action does. Here's the truth no one wants to hear. Done builds momentum. Perfect builds anxiety. When you finish something, even if it's imperfect, you gain clarity. You gain feedback. You gain progress. When you wait for perfect, you gain nothing except stress, self-doubt, and delay. It's not about perfection. It's about progression. That's the key. Think about the people you admire. Creators, founders, artists, innovators. Do you think their first version was flawless? Do you think they waited until every single detail was airtight before they launched? No, they moved. They acted. They released. And because they released, they improved. You can't edit what doesn't exist. You can't refine what hasn't begun. Every masterpiece started as a messy draft. Every success started as an imperfect attempt. The difference between the achiever and the dreamer? The achiever pressed publish. The dreamer kept perfecting in silence. You have a choice. You can chase approval or you can chase progress. You can spend your life fixing what doesn't matter, or you can build what does. Perfectionism keeps you safe, but safe doesn't scale. You say you're waiting for excellence, but excellence comes after execution, not before it. You earn excellence through repetition, not hesitation. That's what perfectionists never understand. You don't reach mastery by avoiding mistakes. You reach mastery by surviving them. Let's get practical. What does perfectionism look like in real life? It looks like the entrepreneur who never launches their website because the design isn't quite right. It looks like the writer who never publishes because they keep editing the same paragraph for a month. It looks like the content creator who records the same video 10 times and still calls it not ready. You think you're working, but you're actually avoiding. You're protecting yourself from judgment by delaying exposure. But here's the truth. The judgment doesn't disappear. It just waits for you at the finish line. You can either face it now or face it later. You choose. You say you want impact. But impact requires imperfection, because the people you're meant to reach don't need a flawless version of you. They need an authentic one. Perfection doesn't inspire. Vulnerability does. Perfection doesn't connect. Honesty does. You're not losing opportunities because you're not good enough. You're losing them because you refuse to release. Every day you wait to get it right, someone else is out there getting ahead, not because they're better, but because they're faster. They're willing to look messy. They're willing to be seen unfinished. They're willing to learn in public, and that's what perfectionists can't stand. You want growth without embarrassment, but that's not how the game works. Growth requires embarrassment. Progress requires imperfection. Success requires public learning. That's the cost of greatness. Here's the irony. The longer you wait to make it perfect, the worse it actually gets. Because perfectionism kills creativity. When you overthink, you strangle your instincts. When you overpolish, you kill spontaneity. When you overanalyze, you lose the spark that made the idea special in the first place. Perfection is the death of momentum. Perfection is the graveyard where good ideas go to die. You don't need another round of edits. You don't need another final version. You need courage. That's the difference. It's not about being perfect. It's about being brave. So what do? Here's the discipline. Set a standard, not a fantasy. Create deadlines that force you to release. Commit publicly so you can't back out. When it's 80% right, hit publish. When it's good enough to deliver value, move. You can fix the rest later, because momentum beats precision. Done beats perfect, always. You'll never think your way into perfection. You act your way into progress. You have a choice. Stay stuck in the cycle of self-editing, or step into the power of execution. Stop hiding behind "not ready." Start building momentum, because momentum is the real measure of mastery, and perfectionism destroys it every time. Let me leave you with this. Perfectionism doesn't protect your reputation. It delays your evolution. You don't need to prove you're flawless. You need to prove you're consistent. Consistency builds trust. Execution builds skill. Courage builds legacy. That's the formula. That's the discipline. Done builds momentum. Perfect builds anxiety. Choose momentum. Choose action. Choose growth, because the world doesn't reward those who plan perfectly. It rewards those who move imperfectly again and again until they win. You've learned to release the illusion of perfect. Now it's time to confront the real enemy of progress, the need for control. Because control kills collaboration, and collaboration builds empires. Chapter 5. The Delegation Paradox. You say you want to scale. You say you want freedom. You say you want to grow, but you won't let go. You clutch every task like it's oxygen. You rewrite every message. You double-check every move. You call it standards. But it's ego. Let's be clear. Delegation isn't about trust in others. It's about releasing your need to be the hero. You can't delegate without trust. And you can't trust if your identity is built on control. That's the paradox. The very thing that got you here, control, precision, self-reliance, is the same thing that's stopping you from getting to the next level. You think doing everything yourself makes you indispensable. It actually makes you replaceable, because you become the bottleneck. You're not building a system. You're building a cage. Let's call it out directly. You don't have a delegation problem. You have an ego problem. You don't trust anyone else because deep down you think no one can do it like you. But here's the truth. If that's true, you failed as a leader. Leadership isn't about doing more. It's about multiplying impact. It's not about control. It's about capacity. You're not losing control. You're gaining capacity. That's the shift. That's the discipline. Delegation feels like risk, but it's actually leverage. It's how time multiplies through other people. It's how you move from being the worker to being the builder. When you delegate, you're no longer trading time for output. You're trading trust for scale. That's the key. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Delegation will feel wrong at first. It'll feel messy. It'll feel slow. It'll feel inefficient. Because you're not just handing off a task. You're handing off control. And control is your comfort zone. You'll watch someone else do it 70% as well as you could. And your ego will scream. You'll want to take it back. You'll want to fix it. But that's the trap. Because if you take it back, you're teaching them not to grow, and teaching yourself to never let go. The goal isn't perfection. It's progression. Delegation isn't about making them you. It's about freeing you to do what only you can do. Look at every great leader, every successful founder, every visionary builder. They all hit this wall. At some point, they realized that working harder wasn't the answer. Working through others was. Steve Jobs wasn't soldering circuit boards. Oprah isn't editing her own shows. Elon Musk isn't writing every line of code. They built teams. They built systems. They built leverage. You can't scale a life that depends entirely on you. That's not freedom. That's servitude with better branding. So let's talk about what delegation really requires. First, trust. You have to believe that people can learn, that they can rise, that they can surprise you. If you keep assuming everyone will fail, you'll never give them the chance to succeed. Second, clarity. You can't delegate chaos. You can't hand off confusion. If you can't explain the outcome, you can't expect results. Stop saying they didn't get it. Ask yourself, did I communicate it clearly? Third, patience. You don't build competence overnight. You build it through repetition. You build it through feedback. You have a choice. You can invest time teaching once, or you can waste time doing it forever. That's the difference between workers and leaders. Workers repeat tasks. Leaders replace themselves. And here's the part most people miss. Delegation isn't just about business. It's about life. You try to manage everything. Your schedule, your relationships, your home, your emotions. You micromanage your world because it makes you feel safe. But safety isn't freedom. Safety is a cage. You think you're protecting your standards. You're actually protecting your fear, because if you trust others and they fail, you'll have to face something scarier than failure. Disappointment. But disappointment is the price of growth. You can't scale your impact without accepting imperfection. You can't expand your reach without letting go of control. That's the paradox. Delegation is emotional before it's operational. It's a mindset shift before it's a management skill. It's about redefining what success looks like. Success isn't you doing everything right. Success is everything running without you. Think about that for a moment. If your business, your team, or your household collapses when you step away, that's not success. That's dependence. True power is when things work even when you don't. You're not losing control. You're gaining capacity. You're not surrendering excellence. You're multiplying it. That's leverage. That's leadership. So how do you start? Step 1, audit what only you can do. Be honest. Not everything you touch needs your genius. Step 2, delegate one thing this week. Not perfectly, just intentionally. Step 3, document instead of repeat. Every time you teach something, write it down. Turn it into a process, because systems outlast emotion. Processes prevent panic. That's how you build leverage, not by doing more, but by building mechanisms that do it for you. You don't need more hours. You need more trust. You don't need more effort. You need more leverage, because the goal isn't to do it all. It's to build something that outlives you, and you can't do that if you're still holding everything in your hands. You have a choice. Keep clinging to control, or start creating capacity. Keep hoarding responsibility or start multiplying results. You're not losing control. You're gaining capacity. Say it again. You're not losing control. You're gaining capacity. Delegation is the bridge between exhaustion and expansion. It's how you evolve from operator to owner, from busy to powerful, from reactive to intentional. Stop trying to prove you can do it all. Start proving you can build people who can. That's real leadership. That's real freedom. You mastered delegation. Now, let's talk about the next trap that kills your growth. The illusion of progress through planning. Chapter 5. The delegation. Paradox. You say you want to scale. You say you want freedom. You say you want to grow, but you won't let go. You clutch every task like it's oxygen. You rewrite every message. You double-check every move. You call it standards, but it's ego. Let's be clear. Delegation isn't about trust in others. It's about releasing your need to be the hero. You can't delegate without trust. And you can't trust if your identity is built on control. That's the paradox. The very thing that got you here, control, precision, self-reliance, is the same thing that's stopping you from getting to the next level. You think doing everything yourself makes you indispensable. It actually makes you replaceable, because you become the bottleneck. You're not building a system. You're building a cage. Let's call it out directly. You don't have a delegation problem. You have an ego problem. You don't trust anyone else because deep down, you think no one can do it like you. But here's the truth. If that's true, you failed as a leader. Leadership isn't about doing more. It's about multiplying impact. It's not about control. It's about capacity. You're not losing control. You're gaining capacity. That's the shift. That's the discipline. Delegation feels like risk, but it's actually leverage. It's how time multiplies through other people. It's how you move from being the worker to being the builder. When you delegate, you're no longer trading time for output. You're trading trust for scale. That's the key. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Delegation will feel wrong at first. It'll feel messy. It'll feel slow. It'll feel inefficient. Because you're not just handing off a task, you're handing off control. And control is your comfort zone. You'll watch someone else do it 70% as well as you could. And your ego will scream. You'll want to take it back. You'll want to fix it. But that's the trap. Because if you take it back, you're teaching them not to grow. And teaching yourself to never let go. The goal isn't perfection. It's progression. Delegation isn't about making them you. It's about freeing you to do what only you can do. Look at every great leader, every successful founder, every visionary builder. They all hit this wall. At some point, they realized that working harder wasn't the answer. Working through others was. Steve Jobs wasn't soldering circuit boards. Oprah isn't editing her own shows. Elon Musk isn't writing every line of code. They built teams. They built systems. They built leverage. You can't scale a life that depends entirely on you. That's not freedom. That's servitude with better branding. So let's talk about what delegation really requires. First, trust. You have to believe that people can learn, that they can rise, that they can surprise you. If you keep assuming everyone will fail, you'll never give them the chance to succeed. Second, clarity. You can't delegate chaos. You can't hand off confusion. If you can't explain the outcome, you can't expect results. Stop saying they didn't get it. Ask yourself, did I communicate it clearly? Third, patience. You don't build competence overnight. You build it through repetition. You build it through feedback. You have a choice. You can invest time teaching once, or you can waste time doing it forever. That's the difference between workers and leaders. Workers repeat tasks. Leaders replace themselves. And here's the part most people miss. Delegation isn't just about business. It's about life. You try to manage everything, your schedule, your relationships, your home, your emotions. You micromanage your world because it makes you feel safe. But safety isn't freedom. Safety is a cage. You think you're protecting your standards. You're actually protecting your fear, because if you trust others and they fail, you'll have to face something scarier than failure, disappointment. But disappointment is the price of growth. You can't scale your impact without accepting imperfection. You can't expand your reach without letting go of control. That's the paradox. Delegation is emotional before it's operational. It's a mindset shift before it's a management skill. It's about redefining what success looks like. Success isn't you doing everything right. Success is everything running without you. Think about that for a moment. If your business, your team, or your household collapses when you step away, that's not success. That's dependence. True power is when things work even when you don't. You're not losing control. You're gaining capacity. You're not surrendering excellence. You're multiplying it. That's leverage. That's leadership. So how do you start? Step 1. Audit what only you can do. Be honest. Not everything you touch needs your genius. Step 2. Delegate one thing this week. Not perfectly, just intentionally. Step 3. Document instead of repeat. Every time you teach something, write it down. Turn it into a process, because systems outlast emotion. Processes prevent panic. That's how you build leverage. Not by doing more, but by building mechanisms that do it for you. You don't need more hours. You need more trust. You don't need more effort. You need more leverage, because the goal isn't to do it all. It's to build something that outlives you, and you can't do that if you're still holding everything in your hands. You have a choice. Keep clinging to control, or start creating capacity. Keep hoarding responsibility, or start multiplying results. You're not losing control. You're gaining capacity. Say it again. You're not losing control. You're gaining capacity. Delegation is the bridge between exhaustion and expansion. It's how you evolve from operator to owner, from busy to powerful, from reactive to intentional. Stop trying to prove you can do it all. Start proving you can build people who can. That's real leadership. That's real freedom. You mastered delegation. Now, let's talk about the next trap that kills your growth. The illusion of progress through planning. Chapter 7. The Silent Cost. Burnout. You think you're tired because you work too hard. But that's not the truth. You're tired because you're doing it alone. Burnout doesn't come from effort. It comes from isolation. You're not tired of work. You're tired of carrying everything by yourself. That's the silent cost. You used to have fire. Now you're just running on fumes. The same drive that built your momentum is now burning you alive, because no matter how strong you are, you can't outwork disconnection. You can't out-hustle loneliness. You can't outgrind silence. You've confused productivity with purpose. You've mistaken exhaustion for achievement. And now you call it dedication when really, it's depletion. You have a choice. Keep feeding the fire until it burns everything you built, or learn to rebuild the system that fuels you. That's the key. Burnout doesn't start with exhaustion. It starts with ego. It starts when you say, "No one can do it like me." When you believe, "If I don't do it, it won't get done right." When you confuse control with excellence, you tell yourself you're being responsible. You're not. You're being afraid to trust, afraid to delegate, afraid to slow down long enough to let someone else step up. That's not leadership. That's survival disguised as service. Here's the hard truth. Doing everything yourself doesn't make you strong. It makes you replaceable. Because when you refuse to build systems, you become the system. And when you go down, everything goes with you. That's not power. That's fragility. The highest performers in the world don't do everything. They do what only they can do. They delegate the rest. They protect their energy like it's currency, and because it is. You say you don't have time to rest. But the truth is you don't have time not to. Rest isn't retreat. It's recovery. You don't recharge because you're weak. You recharge because you plan to last. You're not a machine. Even machines need maintenance. You're not lazy for stepping back. You're strategic for staying functional. Burnout doesn't come from hard work. It comes from disconnection, from yourself, from your mission, from others. You're not tired of work. You're tired of isolation. Say it again. You're not tired of work. You're tired of isolation. Let's get brutally honest. You wear busy like a badge. You treat exhaustion like evidence of importance. You say yes to everything because you're afraid of being forgotten. But busy isn't noble. It's numbness. It's easier to drown in tasks than to face the silence of your own burnout. Easier to stay in motion than to admit you've lost direction. Busyness hides emptiness. And the more you hide behind motion, the less progress you make. You're not productive. You're avoiding reflection. So let's redefine what success actually looks like. Success isn't about doing it all. It's about building what lasts. It's about multiplying your energy through others. It's about building systems that sustain your strength. If your success costs you your peace, it's not success. It's slavery to your own ambition. Because discipline isn't just about doing more. It's about knowing when to stop. That's the difference between builders and burners. Builders create systems that grow with them. Burners drain themselves trying to hold everything together. Which one are you? Here's the paradox. You think burnout means you've lost motivation. But burnout isn't the absence of motivation. It's the absence of meaning. You've been moving so fast you forgot why you started. You stopped listening to the voice that used to guide you. You silenced your curiosity in the name of efficiency. And that's the cost. When creativity dies, purpose fades. When purpose fades, burnout wins. That's the silent cost of doing everything alone. Let's fix that. Here's how you rebuild from burnout, step by step. Step 1. Audit your energy, not just your time. Time management is overrated. Energy management is everything. Ask yourself, what drains me? What fuels me? What can I delegate? Write it down, because what you don't measure, you can't manage. Step 2. Schedule recovery as non-negotiable. Recovery isn't optional. It's operational. Put it on the calendar. Protect it like a meeting with your future self. If you don't rest, you regress. Step 3. Reconnect with people who challenge and recharge you. You can't lead in isolation. Find a circle that reminds you of your humanity, not just your hustle. Burnout thrives in silence. Kill it with connection. And step 4. Redefine your role. You're not here to do everything. You're here to build something that works without you. That's real leadership, because leadership isn't about control. It's about capacity. Burnout is your body's way of saying, you're doing the right things in the wrong way. It's not punishment, it's a signal. Listen to it. It's telling you what needs to change. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't lead from a burned-out heart. You can't inspire when you're just surviving. You have to fill your tank. Not once. Continuously. That's not selfish. That's sustainable. You have a choice. Keep running until it breaks you, or start building something that frees you. You have a choice to rest before you're forced to stop. You have a choice to trust before you collapse. You have a choice to lead smarter, not harder, because burnout isn't a badge of honor. It's a warning sign of imbalance. You're not here to burn out. You're here to build out. That's the mindset shift. That's the pivot from exhaustion to expansion. You don't need to quit your dream. You need to quit doing it alone. You're not tired of work. You're tired of isolation. Remember that. Repeat it until it sinks in, because connection is the cure, and delegation is the discipline that keeps you alive. You've faced the silent cost of burnout, and you've seen the truth. You don't need more energy. You need better systems. You don't need more hours. You need more help. You don't need to slow your dream. You need to strengthen your structure. You've been the fire for too long. Now it's time to become the architect. You've learned how isolation drains and connection multiplies. Now it's time to go deeper into the discipline that builds consistency, clarity, and real momentum. Chapter 8. Leverage, the true currency of growth. Let's get something straight. Growth isn't about effort. It's about leverage. Most people never grow because they're too busy trying to outwork what they could have simply outstructured. They keep adding more hours, more stress, more grind, when what they really need is more leverage. You don't grow by adding hours. You grow by adding leverage. Say it again. You don't grow by adding hours. You grow by adding leverage. That's the key. Look around you. The people who scale, the people who rise, the people who build empires, they don't do everything. They multiply what they do. They understand that one good system can outproduce 10 talented people. That one strong partnership can replace a year of lonely hustle. That one smart tool can turn a task that took hours into something that runs itself. They don't ask, how can I do more? They ask, how can this do more without me? That's the difference between exhaustion and expansion. Let's talk truth. If you're still doing everything yourself, you're not scaling, you're surviving. You're not a CEO, you're an employee of your own limitations. Leverage is the bridge between potential and performance. It's the shift from I do it all to I make it happen through others. You don't need to be the hero. You need to be the architect, because the hero gets tired. But the architect builds something that lasts. That's leverage. Leverage is simple, but it's not easy. It demands trust. It demands systems. It demands that you let go of the need to be in control of every detail. And that's where most people fail. They say they want freedom, but they don't build anything that can function without them. They say they want scale, but they can't trust anyone to touch their work. They say they want success, but they're addicted to being busy. Busyness is the drug of the control freak. Leverage is the medicine for the visionary. You have a choice. Stay addicted to motion or commit to multiplication. That's the key. You see, leverage isn't about laziness. It's about intelligence. It's not about doing less work, and it's about doing the right work. You can't scale chaos. You can only scale clarity. So stop asking, how can I work harder? Start asking, what can I systemize, delegate, or automate? Because the person who builds systems wins every time. The solo worker hits a wall. The system builder breaks through it. The worker burns out. The builder breaks out. That's leverage. Think of leverage like a triangle with 3 sides: people, systems, tools. Each side multiplies your capacity. Each one turns effort into impact. People give you time. Systems give you consistency. Tools give you speed. When you combine all 3, you create unstoppable momentum. But remove one, and the structure collapses. That's why most businesses and most people stall. They rely on one side of the triangle and ignore the rest. They try to do everything through people, but without systems, it's chaos. They try to rely only on systems, but without trust, it's fragile. They try to depend only on tools, but without purpose, it's meaningless. Real leverage is balance, and balance comes from clarity. Let's make it practical. If you want leverage, start here. Step 1, build repeatable systems. Anything you do more than twice deserves a process. Document it. Simplify it. Delegate it. That's how you build momentum that doesn't rely on your energy. Step 2, multiply through people. Hire slow but trust fast. Give people clarity, not chaos. Don't just delegate tasks. Delegate outcomes. That's how leaders are born. Step 3, use tools that automate the trivial. If a tool can do it faster, let it. If software can handle it better, use it. Your brain should be focused on vision, not admin. Remember, leverage starts small but scales fast. Even 10 minutes saved a day becomes 60 hours a year. That's the math of momentum. Here's what's holding you back. You're still trying to earn success with effort instead of structure. You're still clinging to the belief that hard work alone is noble. But let me be blunt. Hard work without leverage is just manual labor. And manual labor doesn't build legacy. You can't out-hustle a system. You can't outgrind a team that multiplies. You can't outwork the person who knows how to automate. The world doesn't reward effort anymore. It rewards efficiency. You have a choice. Keep chasing hours or start designing leverage. Here's the paradox most people miss. Leverage requires humility. It forces you to admit you can't do it all, that you need help, that your control is actually your bottleneck. That's the ego barrier. And if you don't break it, it will break you. Because the need to control everything is the fastest way to control nothing. If you truly want growth, let go. Not of standards, not of quality, but of ego. Trust others to carry the vision with you. Train them, empower them, release them. Leverage isn't loss of control. It's designed freedom. That's the difference between a hustler and a builder. A hustler fights for every inch. A builder designs a system that expands miles beyond their reach. You don't grow by adding hours. You grow by adding leverage. Say it again until it becomes a belief. Leverage is the currency of time, and time is the currency of impact. When you waste time, you drain leverage. When you build leverage, you buy freedom. The richest people aren't the ones who have the most money. They're the ones who have the most time because they've learned how to multiply their results without multiplying their hours. You can't be free if you're still the engine of everything you build. Freedom begins when systems replace you. You don't need to work more. You need to work through more, through people, through tools, through systems. That's how you scale. That's how you win. So let me ask you, are you the worker who burns out or the builder who multiplies? You already know the answer. You just have to choose it. You don't need their permission. You don't need validation. You just need to act on what you already know. that your growth depends on your ability to leverage. Leverage your team. Leverage your time. Leverage your tools. That's not cheating. That's intelligence, because smart builders don't add hours, they add structure. They don't chase speed, they chase systems. They don't grind forever. They build freedom. You've learned the truth. Growth isn't powered by effort. It's powered by leverage. You've stopped thinking like a worker and started thinking like a builder. You've traded hours for systems and hustle for structure. You've stopped being the machine and started becoming the designer. That's evolution. That's mastery. And now that you understand leverage, it's time to explore the next stage of growth. The one that separates the chaotic from the calm, the reactive from the intentional. Chapter 9. Ego versus expansion. Let's talk about the quiet killer of your growth. It's not laziness. It's not lack of time. It's ego. Ego whispers, only I can do it right. Expansion whispers, let others rise with me. That's the difference between a manager and a leader, between someone who survives and someone who scales. Because here's the truth, your ego doesn't make you strong. It makes you small. Ego builds cages. Expansion builds kingdoms. That's the key. You say you want to grow. You say you want freedom. But freedom requires release, and ego hates that word, release. Ego clings. Ego controls. Ego fears being unseen, so it convinces you that delegation is risky, that trusting others means lowering your standards, that letting go means losing relevance. But listen closely. Your need to control everything is the very thing holding you back from controlling anything. You can't expand when your hands are gripping the wheel so tight you can't move. You have to let go to grow. You have a choice. Keep clinging to your ego or commit to your expansion. That's the key. Ego says, if I don't do it, it won't be done right. Expansion says, if I teach them, it'll be done right and done repeatedly. That's leadership. Ego builds a job. Expansion builds a movement. Ego wants to be important. Expansion wants to be impactful. And if you ever want to build something that outlives you, you must choose impact over importance. You don't need to be the hero. You need to be the builder of heroes. That's how legacies are made. Let's get real. Ego feels good. It feels powerful. It feels safe. It feels like validation when everyone comes to you for answers. It feels like control when you're the bottleneck of every decision. But that's not leadership. That's dependence. If your team, your business, your project can't function without you, then you haven't built success. You've built a cage and locked yourself inside it. You're not indispensable. You're imprisoned. That's the cost of ego. You have to decide what kind of power you want. Do you want control, or do you want capacity? Do you want credit, or do you want growth? Because ego chooses credit. Expansion chooses capacity. And capacity is where real success lives. Ego says, I can do it all. Expansion says, we can do more together. You have a choice, isolation or elevation. And every day you hold on to ego, you're choosing the wrong one. Let me give it to you straight. Your ego is expensive. It costs you innovation because you're not open to new ideas. It costs you trust because people stop trying when you always have to be right. It costs you growth because you're too busy proving instead of improving. Ego doesn't scale. It suffocates. Ego doesn't multiply. It minimizes. Ego is the ceiling you keep hitting, wondering why your results won't rise. You can't build an empire when you're obsessed with polishing your throne. That's the truth. Expansion, on the other hand, is bold. It's generous. It's abundant. Expansion doesn't say, I'll do it better. It says, I'll build others to do it well. Expansion doesn't hoard knowledge. It shares it. It doesn't fear being replaced. It builds people who can replace you. Because expansion understands something ego never will. If you build others, you multiply yourself. You're not losing control. You're gaining capacity. That's the mindset of a leader. So how do you shift from ego to expansion? 3 words: teach, trust, transform. Teach what you know, without holding back. Every time you teach, you extend your reach. Every time you document, you multiply your legacy. Trust the people you've trained. Stop hiring and then micromanaging. Trust doesn't mean blind faith. It means clear communication. Set expectations, not limitations. And finally, transform your role. Stop being the doer. Start being the designer. Your job is not to do everything. It's to make sure everything gets done. That's how you move from ego to expansion. Let's talk about what happens when you make that shift. When you let go of ego, your team grows stronger. Your ideas evolve faster. Your energy comes back. Your business stops depending on you and starts expanding because of you. You become a multiplier, not of tasks, of people, of capacity, of impact. You stop being the center and you become the source. And that's when everything changes. Here's the irony. Ego is loud, but fragile. It's fueled by insecurity. It says, if I'm not in control, I'll be forgotten. But expansion is quiet and confident. It says, I'll build something so strong, they'll remember my impact, not my presence. That's real power. Ego builds cages. Expansion builds kingdoms. Ego needs applause. Expansion builds legacy. You don't need their permission to expand. You don't need validation to lead differently. You just need the courage to release your grip, because when you do, you'll realize the world didn't fall apart. It finally fell into place. Let me say this clearly. Expansion isn't the death of control. It's the birth of influence. When you expand, you multiply your reach. When you trust, you multiply your impact. When you let go, you multiply your freedom. And freedom, that's what this is all about. You started doing everything yourself because you wanted freedom. But ego kept you trapped in your own creation. You thought control would protect you, but it only imprisoned you. Now it's time to choose differently. Now it's time to expand, because expansion doesn't shrink your role. It evolves it. You stop asking, how can I do this? And start asking, who can I empower to do this better? You stop chasing perfection and start creating multiplication. You stop reacting and start leading. That's the shift from ego to expansion. That's the transformation from worker to builder, from control to capacity, from me to we. You have a choice. Keep protecting your ego or start building your kingdom. And the truth is simple. Ego will give you recognition. Expansion will give you reign. Ego makes you the star of a small show. Expansion makes you the architect of an entire empire. Ego builds cages. Expansion builds kingdoms. Never forget that. You've mastered leverage. You've learned to trust. And now you've broken the final barrier. Ego. Because ego was never strength. It was fear disguised as pride. Now it's time to step into something higher, something most people never master, the system that sustains expansion. You've expanded your capacity. Now it's time to organize your power. Chapter 10. Freedom through surrender. You've been taught that freedom means control. That freedom means doing things your way. That surrender means weakness, but that's a lie. True freedom isn't doing everything your way. It's building something that runs without you. That's the truth. Nobody wants to admit, because control feels safe. Control feels powerful. Control feeds the ego, but control is not freedom. It's a cage you built, with gold bars and good intentions. Let's get brutally honest. You've worked hard. You've built the systems. You've mastered the habits. You've grown the team. But deep down, you still don't trust the process to run without you. You check in. You micromanage. You just want to make sure. That's not leadership. That's fear dressed up as diligence. You're not protecting your legacy. you're preventing it from expanding, because here's the hard truth. You can't experience freedom if you don't surrender control. You win when you let go. Repeat that. You win when you let go. That's the key. Freedom isn't built by those who clutch tighter. It's built by those who trust deeper. You don't build empires by doing everything yourself. You build empires by building people and systems that move even when you rest. Surrender doesn't mean quitting. It means choosing wisdom over exhaustion. Surrender isn't a loss. It's leverage. You have a choice to hold on out of fear or let go out of strength. That's the decision that separates the burnt out from the liberated. Think about it. Every great builder, every visionary, every leader who ever created lasting impact, they learned to surrender. They stopped obsessing over every detail. They stopped micromanaging every decision. They trusted their systems, their people, and their mission. They surrendered to the process they built because they knew you can't scale control. You can only scale trust. That's the shift. From control to command, from fear to flow, from effort to ease. You're not here to fight the process. You're here to flow with it. That's real freedom. Here's the paradox most never understand. Surrender requires more strength than control. Control is emotional insecurity disguised as authority. Surrender is emotional mastery disguised as peace. Control says, I can't rest until it's perfect. Surrender says, it's ready. Because the system is stronger than my fear. You see the difference? One drains you, the other multiplies you. That's the path you've been avoiding, and the one you need most. You don't need more energy. You need more surrender. So how do you do it? How do you surrender without losing your edge? Here's how. First, detach from perfection. Perfection is control in disguise. Stop polishing the parts that don't matter. Start trusting the process that does. The goal isn't to make it flawless. The goal is to make it function without you. Second, delegate with intention. Don't just hand off tasks, hand off trust. Teach your people not only what to do, but why it matters. Empower them to make decisions that align with your vision. That's how you multiply leadership. And third, define your role in the bigger picture. You're not the operator anymore. You're the architect. Stop standing in the kitchen when you're meant to be designing the blueprint. You've done your job. Now let your creation breathe. Surrender doesn't mean walking away. It means stepping back to see the whole landscape. Because when you're stuck in the details, you lose sight of the direction. When you're obsessed with control, you miss the chance to create clarity. Freedom is not found in doing everything. Freedom is found in trusting what you've built to stand on its own. And the moment you realize that, your energy shifts. Your stress dissolves. Your creativity returns. You start leading from peace, not pressure. You don't need to prove you're in charge. You need to prove your system works without you in charge. That's mastery. Because real success isn't built when you're there watching it. It's built when it thrives while you're gone. That's what you've been working toward. That's what all the systems, habits, and delegation were preparing you for, and freedom through surrender. You don't own freedom. You design for it, and design demands release. Let's be clear. Surrender doesn't mean weakness. Weakness is when you quit, because it's hard. Surrender is when you release because it's working. Weakness says, I can't do this anymore. Surrender says, it no longer needs me to do it. That's not failure. That's evolution. You have a choice, to be the worker forever or to be the wise one who steps back and lets the work multiply. You've earned that right. Now use it. Most people never reach this point. They spend their entire lives chasing control, and they call it success. But you're different. You've built enough to know that control is just the illusion of safety. You're ready for something deeper, something freer. Freedom that doesn't require hustle. Freedom that doesn't depend on presence. Freedom that moves because you've built the momentum. That's the freedom of surrender. You don't lose control. You elevate beyond it. Because when you finally surrender, something beautiful happens. You stop forcing and start flowing. You stop proving and start trusting. You stop reacting and start receiving. Everything you've built begins to serve you instead of you serving it. That's the moment you stop being the engine and become the energy. You stop being the driver and become the direction. That's what freedom truly feels like. You've spent chapters mastering structure, discipline, systems, and leverage. But it all leads here, to surrender. Because without surrender, your structure becomes prison. Your discipline becomes obsession. Your systems become control mechanisms instead of freedom engines. Freedom isn't the reward for hard work. It's the result of wise surrender. You win when you let go. Say it again. You win when you let go. That's the key. So take a deep breath. Look at everything you've built. Every system, every lesson, every piece of progress. Now trust it. Trust your design. Trust your people. Trust your process. Let it move without you. Let it grow beyond you, because that's what freedom demands. Release. You've earned this chapter. You've earned your rest. You've earned your freedom. And it begins not with more effort, but with a simple choice to surrender. You've done the work. Now let the work work for you. That's how you become truly free. You built the foundation. You built the systems. You built the momentum. Now it's time to build peace. And that starts with surrender. You win when you let go. Because letting go isn't the end of control. It's the beginning of freedom. You've built your kingdom. Now, it's time to rule it, not run it. You've mastered surrender. Now let's close this journey with the final lesson. The one that ties everything together. The one that defines what all your structure, systems, and surrender were really for. You've been told control equals strength, but strength without surrender is just fear in disguise. The truth is simple. Doing everything yourself doesn't make you unstoppable. It makes you unavailable to bigger opportunities. Growth starts where your ego ends. Freedom starts where trust begins. You can't multiply what you refuse to release. You can't build a legacy by holding everything together. You build it by letting others hold it with you. So here's your challenge. This week, release one thing you've been gripping too tightly. Delegate it, automate it, or delete it. Because control might feel like safety. But letting go is how you finally rise.